Welcome to today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications. Now, let's dive into The Forgotten Daughter, a story that proves sometimes the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are the first ones to abandon you when you need them most. And sometimes the best revenge is showing them exactly what they lost. Rebecca Chen had always been the golden daughter, the one who sacrificed her own dreams to keep her family together. While her brothers pursued their careers and her parents enjoyed their retirement, Rebecca had been the reliable one, organizing family gatherings, lending money during financial crises, and serving as the emotional glue that held the Chen family intact. She had postponed her own marriage plans to help Jake launch his startup, had used her savings to help Michael through his divorce, and had spent countless weekends caring for her aging grandparents while her siblings lived their independent lives. The irony wasn't lost on her that she had discovered the cancer during what was supposed to be a routine checkup before finally planning her own wedding. Rebecca had been engaged to David Liu for 2 years, but had kept postponing their marriage because there was always some family crisis that needed her attention. Her mother had convinced her that family obligations came first, and that a good daughter always put her parents and brothers before her own happiness. For 32 years, Rebecca had believed that her selfless devotion to family would be reciprocated if she ever needed support. She had watched her parents drop everything to help her brothers through their various crises: Michael's addiction problems in college, Jake's failed first business venture, even their ridiculous financial mistakes that Rebecca had quietly fixed behind the scenes. She assumed that this same unconditional support would be available to her if she ever faced a serious problem. The initial symptoms had been subtle: fatigue, irregular periods, occasional abdominal pain that she dismissed as stress from her demanding job and family obligations. Rebecca had been so focused on managing everyone else's problems that she had ignored her own body's warning signs for months. By the time the pain became unbearable and she finally sought medical attention, the cancer had already progressed to stage 3, requiring immediate and aggressive treatment. Rebecca's first call after receiving the diagnosis had been to her mother, expecting comfort, support, and immediate family mobilization to help her through the crisis. Instead, she encountered a level of selfishness and indifference that shattered her understanding of what family meant. Her mother's primary concern wasn't Rebecca's health or survival. It was how Rebecca's illness might inconvenience the family's existing plans and expectations. Rebecca Chen stared at the hospital ceiling, listening to the steady beep of monitors that had become the soundtrack to her life for the past 3 months. The diagnosis had been devastating: stage 3 ovarian cancer at age 32, requiring immediate surgery, followed by aggressive chemotherapy that would likely leave her unable to have children. But more devastating than the cancer itself was the silence from her phone. No missed calls from her parents. No texts from her 2 brothers. No visits from the family she had spent her entire adult life supporting, both emotionally and financially. When Rebecca had first called her mother with the diagnosis, the response had been coldly practical. "Well, you always were dramatic about minor health issues. I'm sure it's not as serious as you're making it sound. Your father and I are planning our retirement cruise next month, so we can't really deal with any family drama right now." Her brother Michael had been even more blunt. "Look, Becca, I've got my own family to worry about. Sarah's pregnant again, and we can't afford to take time off work to play nursemaid. You're a big girl, figure it out." Her younger brother Jake hadn't even returned her calls, apparently too busy with his new startup to acknowledge that his sister was fighting for her life. Rebecca had always been the family's rock, the daughter who never caused problems, who lent money when her brother's businesses failed, who organized every holiday gathering, who took care of aging grandparents while her siblings pursued their careers. She had assumed that when she finally needed support, her family would be there for her. Instead, she discovered that her value to them had always been conditional on what she could provide, not who she was. The isolation was almost worse than the physical pain. During her surgery, Rebecca woke up alone. During her first chemotherapy session, she sat in the treatment center, watching other patients surrounded by loving families while she faced her IV drip with only a hired caregiver for company. Her friends had tried to fill the gap, but most were married with young children and couldn't provide the intensive support that a cancer patient needed. Rebecca found herself relying on strangers, nurses, social workers, and other cancer patients for the emotional support that should have come from family. But as Rebecca's health slowly improved and her treatments progressed, her anger began to crystallize into something more focused. She started paying attention to her family's social media posts, and what she saw there made her realize that their abandonment wasn't based on inability to help, it was based on choice. Her parents had indeed taken their retirement cruise, posting photos from exotic locations while Rebecca underwent chemotherapy alone. Michael had found time for multiple family vacations and weekend trips, sharing pictures of happy family moments that Rebecca wasn't invited to share. Jake's startup was apparently successful enough to fund a luxury lifestyle that he documented extensively online. They weren't too busy or too poor to help Rebecca. They simply didn't consider her worth their time and effort when she couldn't contribute anything to their lives. Rebecca's oncologist had warned her that anger and stress could impact her recovery, but instead of letting her resentment consume her, Rebecca decided to channel it into something productive. She began planning a response that would show her family exactly what they had lost when they chose to abandon her. First, Rebecca used her forced time away from work to reassess her entire life and career. She had been working as a mid-level marketing manager, a stable but unremarkable job that had allowed her to consistently lend money to her brothers and help her parents with their expenses. But her cancer treatment had forced her to take extended medical leave, and during that time, she had started freelance writing and social media consulting from her hospital bed. Rebecca discovered that she had a talent for digital marketing and content creation that she had never fully explored. Her writing about her cancer experience had attracted a significant online following, and several companies had reached out about partnerships and consulting opportunities. By the time Rebecca completed her treatments, she had built a successful freelance business that was earning twice what her corporate job had paid. More importantly, she had developed a platform and voice that gave her significant influence in the cancer advocacy and women's health communities. But Rebecca's business success was just the foundation for her larger plan. She had also been quietly investigating her family's finances and discovered some interesting information. Her parents' retirement fund was smaller than they pretended, and they had been counting on Rebecca's continued financial support to maintain their lifestyle. Michael's business was struggling again, and he had been planning to ask Rebecca for another loan. Jake's startup was actually hemorrhaging money, and he had been considering asking Rebecca to co-sign a business loan. Her family hadn't just abandoned her emotionally, they had also lost their most reliable source of financial support without realizing it. Rebecca decided that her family's next crisis would reveal exactly how their abandonment had consequences they never anticipated. The opportunity came 6 months after Rebecca's final treatment, when her father suffered a mild heart attack. Nothing life-threatening, but scary enough to require expensive medical procedures and several weeks of recovery time. This time, it was Rebecca's phone that stayed silent. Her mother called repeatedly, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails about medical bills, time off work, and the stress of managing her father's care alone. Michael and Jake, apparently overwhelmed by the prospect of actually helping their parents, began reaching out to Rebecca as if nothing had happened. "Becca, I know we haven't talked in a while," Michael said in his voicemail, "but Mom and Dad really need our help right now. You've always been so good at organizing family stuff, and I think you should take the lead on Dad's care plan." Jake's message was even more tone-deaf. "Hey sis, heard about Dad's heart thing. Mom's kind of freaking out about money. You know how you always help out when things get tough. Maybe you could cover some of the medical bills? I'd help, but the startup is at a crucial stage right now." Rebecca listened to each message once and then deleted them without responding. After 2 weeks of silence, her mother showed up at Rebecca's apartment, apparently expecting to guilt Rebecca into resuming her role as the family caretaker. "I don't understand why you're being so cold," her mother said, standing in Rebecca's doorway with tears in her eyes. "Your father could have died, and you haven't even called to check on him. I know we've had our differences, but family is family." Rebecca looked at her mother, really looked at her, and saw not the loving parents he had spent her life trying to please, but a selfish woman who only valued relationships that benefited her. "You're absolutely right," Rebecca said calmly. "Family is family. Which is why I spent 3 months fighting cancer alone while you were on vacation. Which is why I underwent surgery without a single family member in the waiting room. Which is why I lost my hair, my fertility, and nearly my life, while my brothers were too busy to return my phone calls." Her mother's face went pale. "That was different. You're young and strong. We knew you'd be fine. Your father is elderly and fragile. Dad is 68 and in good health, except for a minor heart episode that will be completely manageable with medication and lifestyle changes," Rebecca replied. "I was 32 with stage 3 cancer that had a 30% survival rate. But you're right, it was different. When I needed you, I had no one. When Dad needs you, he has Jake, Michael, and you to help him. He's actually much better supported than I ever was. But we need your help organizing everything," her mother protested. "You've always been so good at managing family crises." "I was good at it because I cared about this family more than anyone else did," Rebecca said. "But I've learned that caring about people who don't care about you is just a waste of energy. You'll figure out how to manage without me, just like I figured out how to survive cancer without you." Rebecca closed the door and listened to her mother's protests through the wall. But for the first time in months, she felt completely at peace with her decision. Over the next few weeks, Rebecca watched her family struggle with the reality of managing a crisis without her. Her parents had to hire expensive private care assistants for her father's recovery. Michael and Jake were forced to take time off work and contribute financially to their parents' care, disrupting their own lives and budgets in ways they had never experienced before. Most importantly, her family was finally learning what Rebecca had always known. Caring for people requires sacrifice, effort, and unconditional love, things they had never been willing to provide when she needed them. But Rebecca's revenge was more sophisticated than simply withholding her help. She was also building something that would show her family exactly what they had lost when they chose to abandon her. Using her platform as a cancer survivor and successful entrepreneur, Rebecca launched a non-profit organization called the Forgotten Warriors Foundation that provided comprehensive support for cancer patients who didn't have family support systems. The foundation offered everything from transportation to treatment, to emotional counseling, to financial assistance. The organization quickly gained national attention and significant funding from major corporations and celebrities who were moved by Rebecca's story and her dedication to helping other abandoned cancer patients. Rebecca became a prominent advocate for cancer patient rights and was invited to speak at conferences, appear on television, and consult with hospitals about improving patient support systems. Her success was widely covered in local and national media, and her family couldn't avoid seeing news coverage of Rebecca's achievements and recognition. They were forced to watch her succeed beyond anything she had accomplished while trying to please them, and to realize that their abandonment had freed her to become the person she was always capable of being. But the most painful realization for Rebecca's family came when they discovered the full scope of what they had lost. Jake's startup finally failed completely, and he found himself in serious financial trouble with no one to turn to for help. Michael's business hit another rough patch, and his wife Sarah, who had never liked Rebecca anyway, refused to let him ask his sister for assistance after the way the family had treated her. Rebecca's parents, meanwhile, were struggling with the ongoing costs of her father's medical care and their retirement expenses. They had always assumed Rebecca would be there to help them age gracefully, but now they faced the prospect of significantly downsizing their lifestyle or moving in with one of their sons. The financial consequences of losing Rebecca's support were severe, but the emotional consequences were worse. Her family was forced to acknowledge that they had discarded the one person who had truly loved them unconditionally, and that their abandonment of her revealed their own fundamental selfishness and lack of character. Rebecca occasionally heard updates about her family's struggles through mutual friends, but she felt no satisfaction in their difficulties. Her focus was entirely on her foundation, her health, and building relationships with people who valued her for who she was, rather than what she could provide. The foundation's success led to Rebecca being invited to the White House to discuss cancer patient advocacy with the Secretary of Health and Human Services. During the meeting, she proposed a national program that would ensure no cancer patient ever had to face treatment alone, drawing from her personal experience and the model she had developed through her foundation. The proposal was accepted and became federal policy, cementing Rebecca's legacy as someone who had transformed personal pain into systemic change that would help millions of future patients. 2 years after her father's heart attack, Rebecca received a wedding invitation from her cousin David, whom she had always been close to before her illness. The invitation included a handwritten note apologizing for his family's silence during her cancer treatment and expressing admiration for everything she had accomplished since then. David's wedding would be the first family event Rebecca had been invited to since her diagnosis, representing a potential opportunity to reconnect with extended family members who had not participated in her immediate family's abandonment. Rebecca's mother made one final attempt at reconciliation, writing a letter that acknowledged the family's failure to support Rebecca during her cancer treatment and expressing genuine remorse for their selfishness. The letter revealed that her parents' marriage was struggling under the stress of financial pressures and guilt over losing Rebecca, and that both Michael and Jake had expressed regret about their treatment of their sister. However, the letter also subtly suggested that Rebecca should consider the family's current struggles as an opportunity to demonstrate forgiveness and resume her role as the family's caretaker. Instead of responding to her mother's letter, Rebecca used it as inspiration for her autobiography, Surviving Alone: How Cancer Taught Me the Difference Between Family and Blood Relations. The book became a bestseller and was optioned for a television movie, bringing even more attention to her foundation and the issue of cancer patient abandonment. The book's success generated millions of dollars in donations for cancer support services and established Rebecca as one of the country's leading voices on family dynamics during health crises. 5 years after her cancer diagnosis, Rebecca married Dr. James Rodriguez, an oncologist she had met through her advocacy work, who understood both her health journey and her commitment to helping other patients. Their wedding was attended by hundreds of cancer survivors, medical professionals, and advocates whose lives Rebecca had touched through her foundation. Notably absent were her parents and brothers, who had not been invited to participate in Rebecca's new life. Her chosen family of fellow survivors and advocates had proven to be more loving and supportive than her biological family had ever been. Thanks for listening to today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications.